Take a computer. Oh. Get more angry. All right, we're up on all the things.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for number 51. Yeah. So, yeah, we had our 50th show last week. Thanks for joining us. You should be live on all the platforms now. So, as always, this is a Q&A session. Nate and I are here to answer all your questions about 034 Motorsport, products, services, our history, anything you'd like to know. Let's take a check off. And then, anything automotive related, we're happy to talk about. So, whatever.
Instagram's not quite up yet.
Oh, Instagram's going on.
Hold on. No, I think we're good now.
Any automotive topics you'd like us to weigh in on? Controversial topics.
There we go.
We kind of take a no BS approach to everything we talk about. Try to cut through to the truth of what within any topic. And I don't know. Neither of us like to blow smoke or
believe in alternative facts.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty skeptical, and we like to prove things and talk based on our experience. So, there's in snake oil and stuff, that we're very against that here at 034 Motorsport. So, feel free to put your questions into whatever platform you're on, and we'll be happy to weigh in. So, did you have a good weekend, Nate?
I did. I was camping with my family up north coast of California, so I've been wrangling a 2-year-old for the entire weekend. We did well.
Cool. Yeah,
I unfortunately missed our drive and our
that was really
some epic chili.
We had a great drive on Saturday here for the local Audi Club Golden Gate chapter. So if you're watching and you came out to that, thanks for being here. We're sorry this event wasn't open to the entire world. We're not quite ready for that. But there still was lots of people here. I mean, there was probably at least 50 to 80 people, I would say. Outside, yeah. Nothing was indoors. Everybody, I was happy. Everyone was wearing masks. People were like, hanging out and talking, but people did wear their masks and behaved. So we appreciate that.
That's the only way we can make more of these events happen.
That's right. I cooked a bunch of chili, which turned out great, with pot roast chili. If you're interested in the recipe, I published it several times.
No leftovers?
Yeah, there was quite a bit. Like, sent a bunch of people home with Ziploc bags.
Absolutely, no, I'm here.
Oh, I don't think so. There was supposed to be, but
Put an order in.
I should have brought some in for you. I'm sorry. I still have a little bit at the house. And then yesterday I took our Nick's, our marketing manager Nick's SQ5 home with our Stage 1 3.0T MG1 tune on it. And I spent some time driving that this weekend, went up into the mountains, and really, really happy with how that's running. Drivability was phenomenal. The power is shockingly good.
Especially for hauling in a SQ5
for a big, heavy SUV. So I mean, it's kind of like the power the car should have had, or maybe an RS version would have. But it felt great, and so we're moving closer to being able to release something as we continue to finalize that tune and calibration. So also was testing our new rear sway bar for that, which definitely reduced body roll, and I didn't slide the car around too much, but
it's a lot of things to slide.
Just steering felt crisper, less body roll, and you kind of get the car into a corner and you can really feel it plant down as opposed to just squishing over more. So very exciting product developments for the SQ5 coming. This is the B9 SQ5, obviously. All right, let's get started on some of these questions that are piling up. I'm just here for the weekly 4.0T engine mount update. Well, good news is we are in the process of sending out, I think, 3 sets of new prototype mounts to testers. I believe we'll be testing 1 set here in our in-house car. So, it's going to be a few months of testing. Some of these are pushed harder than others. So that's some progress. We haven't been able to say any progress, until now. So we received the new samples last week, and they're going out to customers. So stay tuned. With advanced launch control on B8 3.0T, can I use cruise control, or will the fans be on full blast on the highway? I love the tune, by the way.
Nope. Fans, all of the launch control stuff turns off entirely once you're moving. So after just a few kilometers an hour, it shuts down. All the normal functions are there. So it won't interfere at all with your operation, fan operation, or any of the other, systems that are tied in once you're up and moving. So
Yeah.
nope, no impact at all.
Any plans for a DQ500 DSG fluid cooler? I think is Racing Line having?
I think it's just 250.
Mark, write that down.
We've talked about it, but I
Yeah,
don't
we've
know.
talked about
I don't know where it is in the queue.
We're definitely not working on it right now. It's I don't even think it's in the concept pool. So, do you guys recommend an upgraded fuel pump for Stage 2 Plus on B8 3.0T? Stage 2 Plus.
It's not. It depends on the fuel you're running. If anything, ethanol blend absolutely required. It's not a bad idea, honestly, on regular pump fuel. The stock pump will keep up, but it's pretty much at its limit. So it's not a bad idea. It's not a requirement, but it is one of our recommended mods.
Yeah, definitely a good idea to have it.
Yep.
C7 7.5 S6 Res-X. Yes, it's coming. It's currently being manufactured. I think I gave this update a few weeks ago, but we do not make these exhaust components here in-house. We used to. It was a nightmare, and so now we have a professional, world-class manufacturing company produce these products for us.
Lots of CNC bending and CNC welding.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of COVID delays around raw materials, certainly around steel. Springs and sway bars have been delayed and a big challenge, and so it's coming. It could be. I think it's safe to say we'll release it in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I believe. But we have to wait for the product to get here before we release it. Updates going beyond E40 on 3.0T Supercharged.
Going beyond E40,
like E85.
Yeah. I mean, most of it is just limitation in fuel supply. We are working on a couple of solutions in that realm. I don't know how much more we can say about that yet, but it's just physically you're basically kind of capped at E40 to reliably deliver enough fuel to the motor, with the components at hand, the stock pumps, stock injectors. All the fuel delivery systems are pretty much maxed out at E40 for a good, reliable running system.
So you need a bigger high pressure pump.
Bigger pump, yep, very least.
So we are working on some solutions for that. I mean, could you? What about the secondary injection?
Well, yeah, that's
the stage injection.
That's another one that's out there. That's
the MPI
that requires quite a bit more setup to get built out and working. That's a whole nother controller or an integrated control system with the OEM electronics. And obviously a lot more hardware involved in getting that in there. I don't know on those systems what they're using for fuel pressure regulation. I've had to look a little closer at some of those kits. A lot of times when you're on low pressure, they're closed loop, so that should be fine. But then your low pressure pump starts becoming a huge factor too. So we're basically at the limit there of a lot of these cars too.
And we have a solution for that.
Yep, we've got a solution for that. There's a lot of pieces to kind of line up to really push things much further than they are at the E40 pool.
Someone's asking, I heard you drove the SQ5 this weekend. What are the top 5 things you like about it? So let's see.
This person was probably named Nick.
Yeah, this is anything SQ5 related, B9 SQ5 related is from Nick. I think it's like one of those build it and it will come strategies. So like if we just create like a whole market around the SQ5, then magically people will start tuning me.
Yeah.
No, we're joking. We know there's a lot of people out there. And I was actually
There's at least 3 other Nicks out there.
I was actually really impressed with the car. It's I'm not an SUV person. I certainly don't aspire to be one, but I mean, I kind of like, you know, when I was driving back to the shop this morning, I was kind of thinking it'd be nice to have this for another week, you know. There's a lot of things you can do in the SQ5 you can't do in the Right. So, so speaking of which, the number one is the rear seats fold down, which allows for all kinds of activities, right?
Speaker components.
Speakers, handling of
Chili.
packages,
Yeah.
all the chili stuff I prepared for that was in the back. Lumber, wood,
Hold on,
any kind of,
a little.
yeah.
There we go. Okay.
What was that?
Oh, you'll see.
And then, so that was number one. Number two thing is I actually thought the air ride was nice. You know, I was loading up the rear and I was able to air down the back, kind of, you know, get easier access.
Did you mean to, or did it do it on its?
No, I pushed the button. There's a nice button right there in the back as you're messing with stuff, and so that was nice. And then, you know, it actually, I couldn't really tell it was an air ride car. Like, it could have had springs on it.
Yeah, and I actually drove that down to the Big Willow event we did. You know, down 5, which is either good or terrible road conditions on the way down, and yeah, it was flawless drive a bit, you know, comfort and you know, both comfort and performance mixed in.
Yeah, and it's a heavy car. Obviously, you feel the weight, but
But it's got a lot of tire. It's got a lot of, you know, a lot of good things going for it. The power's in a good place now.
Yeah. The 3.0T turbo motor is really nice, especially with our tune on it. Great power. I mean, I think if 10 years ago there were SUVs that had like 400 crank like this, it would have been really, you know, really amazing with torque to match it.
Yep.
So I thought the motor was great. And the meats, it's got all the meats. 305s all around on
295 over.
295, sorry, on but 305s would fit.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of tire for that platform.
It is. On our ZTF, they're 21 by
1 by 10.
by 10s.
32.
Yeah, 32 offset. Great traction. Drives real nice, you know. So, and then the fifth thing is moms love it. I mean, you know, and
It's pretty true.
yeah, I got a lot of
Dads love
compliments
it too.
moms. So even my wife like came out to see the car. She almost never comes out when I pull in with a new car, and even she was like, "Oh, what's that?" So,
What car makes her run away?
I mean, she doesn't run away, I wouldn't say, but like she's definitely not interested in like if I pulled up in Sean's Mark 6, she would not come out to see it. You know? She'd be like, why is that here? I'm like,
Sorry.
that's how we pay for all this. These cars you don't like. So these loud, noisy, stiff cars. And then sometimes I even have to show her what the products do. She's not too thrilled about it. So, but moms love the SQ5. So
The refrigerator. On wheels.
refrigerator on wheels.
right, that's right. So, all right, cool. Yeah, I think I would get one if
Someone has asked
I needed.
what the updates for the cold air intake for the SQ5 are, B9.
Yeah, it's the engineering is done for the most part.
I don't know if you guys were able to hear Nick, but yeah, that was
yes,
cold air intake updates for the
the X34 for the SQ5 B9 and the B8 are both through engineering, and I believe we are waiting for prototypes to test, or we are testing, but it's coming along. I think it could be like a summer release. Both are really nice. You know, really, we have an engineer on staff, Kelton, who's he's mastered the 034 X34 intake. He's like mastered the way. So
yeah, he's got
he's just
a
cranking
really
them
solid
out.
system down.
Yeah,
there.
he's cranking them out like crazy, and they incorporate all of our design and engineering philosophies really well. So I'm very excited about what's going on with intakes
Yeah.
here right now. I don't think there's any company out there that can keep up with our Volkswagen Audi intakes.
No,
that are coming to market right now.
We've got a lot coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. All right. Tubular subframe for MQB, worth it? Well, I don't know specifically what tubular subframe you're referring to, but let's just answer the question. There's nothing magical about a tubular subframe. So if you designed, built, or purchased a tubular subframe that gave you the same basic dimensions and alignment specifications as the factory subframe, I would say it's probably a huge waste of time. There are advantages to tubular subframes in some cases, but I would say the biggest is if you're looking at installing or implementing a tubular subframe in your car that allows you to do something with the alignment that can't be done with the factory subframe, then there could be benefits. But I don't think on its own, tubular subframes can be lighter.
Yeah, they can be a little lighter.
They can be more rigid,
stiffer.
stiffer.
Be a little stiffer, but
not necessarily.
I haven't seen, right, yeah, they have to be engineered very specifically to increase factory, stiffness from the factory. But, subframe deflection would be pretty low on my list for things to.
I don't think that's an issue. I mean, there's no flexing or deflecting or anything of the factory sub.
Yeah, on some of these cars, it doesn't actually even help the weight. I know we had a customer in service.
Yeah, no, we do. The service has installed a couple, and yes, they either weigh the same or more.
On what cars?
Like the CQ35 aluminum rear subframe, if you're replacing with tubular steel.
Yeah, no, it's a wash.
But if you're going for either change geometry, some additional clearance on something, they might have a benefit there. But just to swap out a stock one when you've got all of your other parts that fit on a stock one, I would struggle to see the benefit in that.
Yeah, so I think I guess my biggest concern is there some magical property of tubular subframes that cannot be matched in a cast aluminum or even a welded steel subframe, and I don't think there necessarily is. We see tubular subframes on things like race cars and possibly low production run supercars and things like that because why tool up to do a cast aluminum seat frame if you're just going to build 10? Yeah. But, tubular is a way to, you could build one tubular subframe pretty cheaply compared to the tooling required for a highly manufactured product. So don't buy into that. You got to look beyond the tubing or the material, and you have to look at the actual implementation. Technically, mechanically, what do you get by making this change? That's the key. What's your take on full electric turbos that run off of 48 volts like that of a torque amp? Oh, torque amp is a brand?
Have not had any experience with them to date. I think they're outside of the OEM world that's been using them. I think it's a little premature on the aftermarket stuff to have something that's worth the effort of installing. And then you've got to work on some sort of system to properly, provide that air to the motor without it being a restriction net. So, the OEMs that I've seen do it have an actual control flap.
Mm-hmm.
So you're changing your intake path from your pre-charger, whatever you want to call it,
to
your primary boost.
You drive by wire throttle bar.
Yeah. So there's a lot that would have to go into that to make it better than not having it to start with. And doing it in a way that's seamless is going to be pretty tricky on cars these days. So
we've never used one. I've been reading about them for 20 years. Potentially a game-changing technology.
Yep. And I'm happy to hear 48 volts and up is being talked about now because you do need a lot of power
to
drive this thing, and to do it without running like 0 gauge wire is going to be higher voltages.
But you're still probably going to have to add at least some kind of battery.
But then you've got to have that 48 volts at which
to
is
stiffen the power.
Not something cars currently have.
Yeah. But I think if it was a panacea, all the OEMs would be using it. The fact of the matter is that turbocharging is incredibly attractive still.
Yeah.
It's just a packaging issue, and you can very nicely package a turbocharger in any motor. And now you have a fully integrated system that's just using the energy that's already there. So you don't have to add really much of anything other than incorporating the turbo into the exhaust manifold, adding an intercooler. It's actually really cheap and simple to do. The electric turbocharging that I think is interesting is, in the aftermarket application, you put a big, so you say you put like a 800 horsepower turbo, and then you use the electric turbo to spool that up and to broaden, the power band. Now you have like an engine compartment filled with power adder devices. It gets really complicated, and it's not very attractive from that point.
Yeah, and the motors these days are so flexible too, more so than they used to be in the past. With either with the valve timing, valve lift adjustments. There's a lot more tricks that engines have these days to really broaden that.
Look at the Dazzle
curve.
It's a 600 horsepower, 550 horsepower turbo that spools up at 3,000 RPM.
Audi and Porsche are using electric turbos.
Yeah.
S6 and S7.
Yes, there are OEM. Yeah, there are OEM integrations.
It's bringing a compound, like a dual electric and
Yep. There's plenty of OEM integrations now.
They're starting to more, but
they've
turbocharging is by far.
Yes, they've got the entire system around us. They've got the charge path switcher. They've got the voltage supply at hand. So just sticking one onto an existing motor is where it gets.
And knowing, I haven't seen these OEM implementations, but knowing how the OEMs do it, it's probably just this massive assembly of like turbos and all built into this one thing. Have you ever seen the sequential turbo setups off of Supra? It's like a shit show, And that was kind of like the big technology in the 80s is like, you run two turbos, one's smaller, one's bigger, and they spool each other up. And, everyone moved away from it because, like Nate said, they were able to do all that inside the motor with advanced, camshaft and timing controls. So it's cool. I've seen a few people use it. I personally am not interested in having like a crap ton of stuff in my engine compartments, especially like a race car or something like that. But it's more stuff to break. But it's definitely an interesting technology for sure. Will you be offering sway bars for the SQ5? Yes, absolutely. So we currently offer a rear sway bar for the B8 SQ5. We have for quite a while. I was testing our B9 this weekend. And we tested at the track on the soft setting, and I was testing on the stiff setting on the street. That should be to market in 3 months or so. And then we will release a front sway bar for the B9 SQ5 because we believe it needs it. The car will handle great with just the rear. Arguably, you don't need a front, but if you would like more emphasis on flat body roll or body roll reduction, then a front will add to that. It won't necessarily change the handling dynamic as much as just having the rear. Just the rear bar will make the car turn better. But by adding the front bar, you'll virtually eliminate the body roll in the car. So just for like cruising around the street, whipping around corners and stuff, the front bar will really help for that. What time is it?
2020.
This is a fun question. What was big in the tuning scene 10 years ago compared to today? So like in 2011. So in 2011, this place was like 2.7T central.
Yeah, single turbo 270 stuff was pretty.
We were doing single turbos, engine builds. We would sell like $20,000 270 engines out of here every day.
Yep.
Rods, pistons, bearings, KO4 turbos, tile turbos, our STK kit, which we brought to market.
And then we were doing a bunch of 180 build, like 2
180
liter
stuff.
starter build stuff.
Yeah, we were still doing a lot of big i5 build stuff. At that time, we were building motors. We were doing cylinder heads. We were doing 3.5-inch exhausts for the B5. In-house, all built here, which again was an
for a number of reasons.
Mark 5, Mark 6 stuff wasn't really. I guess Mark 6 was
Mark 5 would have been pretty.
It was there. Mark 5 never really took off. I mean, it was like the first FSI motor. People didn't know what to do with them. They were injector limited. So we would do a lot of KO4 turbo kits.
Yes. Yeah, we did
tons of those, like a number of those a day. We were selling a lot of like Garrett turbos, precision turbos. I think the Borg Warner stuff had just come out. EFR was just coming out. We were building GTI RS. But the market, and we were doing lots of standalone. So we had our 034
We were still
DFI,
doing standalone stuff.
full plug and play harnesses, which was critical because at that time there still weren't really good Motronic ME7 tunes out there. So there was like either you'd get low power output or throttle cuts, misfires, things like that.
Yeah,
so we throw
anytime you were
standalone.
outside of like stage 1, stage 2 stuff.
Yeah, we throw a standalone on it, and so we would sell like a full package with the ECU harness and everything for about $3-4 grand.
Yep.
Everything you needed to do the swap. But the market was much more DIY. Products weren't as refined. People weren't expecting
From
quite
like
as much.
from like anybody.
Yeah.
Towards any, yeah.
So to get a 270 S4 to 550 horsepower, now you can do that in a B8 S4 for what? $3 grand?
Yeah, it's some weekend of
Yeah.
putting a new charge cooler on and flashing your car.
To get a 2.7 to 550 horsepower, it was like at least 10 grand. And most people were probably spending more like 20 to build the motor. KO4s didn't quite get you there.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're looking at a $6,000 turbo kit plus a $10,000 motor plus a clutch that might hold if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we back in 2011, people were spending, like all you guys out there, having a great time with B8 3.0 Ts.
You got it good.
You got it good because in 2011, you would have been spending 20-30 grand to get to where you're at now with these cars. And these cars are faster, more fun to drive. There was no DSG, which,
Right.
You're not running 11s in a 2.7 S4 was like a small miracle. It was really impressive. We had an in-house car that was doing like 500 wheel on a STK. And I took it to the track one night and I managed to eke an 11.9 out of it. And it was the perfect run, the perfect launch. It was on street tires.
Transmissions were really hard.
The shifts are just like
getting like bunches right was
it's like shifting a World War II, relic with the O&E. But I eked out 11.9. I got like a 1.6 60-foot launch, and I got every shift perfectly, and I was able to dip into the 11s. That was really, really hard to do. So now you just spend $2,000 on some tunes and some pulleys, and you're running 11.5s.
Yep.
All day long. So yeah, it was a very different world. It was a different market. 034 Motorsport was a very different company. I would say our products were much lower quality. Like Nate and I were doing all the engineering at the time. The place, everyone was running around with their hair on fire. Everyone's still very busy, but things are much more controlled,
organized chaos,
organized, and professionally managed now compared to then. I was also, I think there was like 30 people working here, and everyone reported to me. There was really no management in the company. Which, and I was also, I think I was sending about 500 emails every day.
Yes.
I started tracking it at one point. And now I'm probably down to like 50. It's like such a better life. So, all right. Yeah, fun question. Thanks for asking. Someone should ask what the tuning market was like 15 or 20, let me go back. I've been in the market for over 20 years. So,
yeah, what people expect now is
it's so different.
Very different from where it was.
And, to be truthful or to be fair, it's much better than people expect now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, we want to deliver this kind of product, but
really high quality products and service. And we strive to rise to those expectations every day.
Yep.
But back then, people were doing the work themselves, and people would still have high expectations, but they were rolling up their sleeves and grinding and welding stuff, and the DIY market has changed. Now DIY is bolting on a perfectly engineered product with no issues. That's not what DIY used to be. And there's still people out there doing some really legit hardcore DIY.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But it's just, it feels like it's a lot less than it used to be.
Well, and to be fair, it's gotten a lot harder. Like you can't DIY, nearly as much on the modern cars without a huge amount of, knowledge, tools, very proprietary tool sets and whatnot to work on them.
Yeah, the B5 era got harder. Like standalone.
Oh, yeah. When drive-by-wire stuff came along, that's really kind of when it started shifting dramatically to
that got a lot harder. Standalone on like an 80s car was pretty easy. You had to run a tack output.
Yep.
To the dash.
Keep the dash happy. Then your ABS still works.
If it had ABS.
If it had ABS.
Yeah, most cars didn't until like the mid 90s. Like I had a 2000 B5 S4 that had no traction control, no ABS.
Yep.
Is it worth upgrading the rear sway bar on the C7 RS6, and what are the benefits? Well, let me just answer this subtly. Fuck yes. Put on the rear sway bar. So the benefits are you'll have less body roll. So that means when you go into a turn, the car does less of this leaning over as the centrifugal force builds. And then the other benefit is that it keeps more of the weight in the rear of the car, which means the car pushes less. So when you go into a corner, and if you can, get to the limit of traction, what a stock car will do is you'll turn the steering wheel and it'll go like this. So instead of going like this, you go that way. With the rear sway bar, the car is going to do less of that in turn. Now it's not going to turn your car into an F1 car, but we've had actually customers think that it would, and it didn't. But what it's going to mean is you're gonna be able to get the car moving in the direction you want it better, because instead of the front of the car going like this, the rear of the car can turn with the front.
Yeah, it usually gives you a lot more option to change the attitude of the car with your accelerator.
Yeah. So there's a thing called trail braking or trailing throttle. And if you can kind of get into the corner and start playing with the brakes or the throttle, you can engage that rear sway bar and get the rear of the car to turn for you. If you don't drive at the limit or like that, that's fine. You're still going to notice the benefit of reduced body. There's really there's no negatives really. I mean, if I want to nitpick, the rear sway bar connects the left and right suspensions together. The stiffer it is, the less independent those suspensions become. So if you kind of took it to its logical extreme, if you just put a straight bar that was infinitely stiff, you would connect both suspensions together and it would turn into a solid axle that would do this. The suspensions would stop doing this and they would do this, just like an old Ford 9-inch rear end, like an old car with like the leaf springs. Our sway bar is stiffer than stock, but it's not infinitely stiff, so it still twists and bends. Your rear suspension can still move independently.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that analogy. It's a little different than that because you wouldn't be allowed to twist on top of that solid rear axle either. You'd be fixed and only have a single motion up and down. The body wouldn't be able to roll around on that axle. So the sway bar is negating.
Yeah, I guess you're right because of the way the springs mount to the body.
So it's a tough one to visualize. But you'd have a solid link that just slots up and down basically.
Regardless, the suspensions would not move independently from each other. They would be rigidly tied together, and to Nate's point, it would basically eliminate any suspension. So what happens when you stiffen up the sway bar is when your right tire hits a bump, it will transfer some of that force to the left tire because the sway bar has rigidity. And so when the right side bar twists, it's going to act on the left side as well. Practically speaking, we designed the sway bar to ensure that effect is minimal or non-existent so that you would never feel it. That would certainly be negative if you're driving down the road and you hit a bump on this side and your car's like doing this. Our sway bars don't do that. So I'm just being open and transparent that a sway bar that's too stiff does have detriments, but we precisely design, engineer, and tune our sway bars to give you the best driving experience without any of the negatives. So sway bars are truly kind of a no compromise mod where it will make your car handle better. It'll make your car more fun to drive. It will not make your car stiffer.
You're really not going to notice it in that casual,
You won't notice it.
cruising driving.
Yep. So it's a great mod. You should definitely do it. I guarantee you'll like it. And this is why we've started focusing so much on sway bars in the last 7-8 years, is because it's a great mod. It can go on every car. We've leased cars and turned them back to the dealership with our sway bars on, and the cars get inspected and they don't even say anything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure whoever ends up with that car is
like, sweet.
Like, man, this S3 handles way better than other ones actually.
We had a customer telling us this weekend he traded his GTI to an Audi dealership in LA and bought an S4, and the dealership left our rear sway bar and
Nice.
called it a driver experience package and raised the MSRP by
There you go.
What's the name of this deal?
Get the details.
Get sales on these, man. We need to sign them up. That's a smart dealer.
Right.
Wow. No, seriously, that's really cool. That's good to hear. All right, let's see. So this came up recently. What are the difference between U.S. octane ratings, AKI, and UK/EU like RON?
It's all in how they're calculated.
It is.
There's different methods that they use to determine a resistance to knock.
It's basically like the metric system versus imperial.
Essentially, I mean, it's
both numbers correlate to essentially the same thing, but the numbers
themselves are different.
So everything that we do, every tune on our website, every tune that we sell and supply, every tune we engineer is AKI, which is the US knock index rating, which is a laboratory tested rating that fuel all over the world. This is why I'm always like, it doesn't really matter where you buy your gas. You can buy it from Chevron, you can buy it from Robbie's or whatever. Fuel gasoline is a highly engineered, highly controlled and tested and regulated product. Probably much more than anything we eat, any food that we put in our body.
Especially in the U.S., yeah.
In the U.S., in the U.S. you can buy freaking poison in a can and eat it all day long. But your gas is like exactly the same every time. Of course, there's seasonalities in the ad, but regardless, it's very tightly regulated. And so one of the key regulation requirements is that if fuel goes to the pump and it's 91, the AKI rating ensures that it's been tested to that standard. You can put it in any car that requires 91 octane from any gas station, from any pump, and it's always going to be AKI 91. In Europe, they have their own. So there's this RON system, and they're doing the same thing. Unfortunately, their numbers are higher. So our 93 is like their 100 or something.
No, 98.
98.
Typically. Yeah.
So
well, again, and that depends. There's different ratings across different regions. So you have our 93 AKI can either be a 98 or 100 depending on the region that it's in over there.
that's true.
And then also by brand, it's tough to directly correlate.
So we had a customer recently who took our 100 octane file, right?
100 KI.
Our 100 AKI file, and put 99 RON fuel in, which is like 90,
Like 92,
Yeah.
93 here.
And I'll just say he had some issues because he put in totally the wrong fuel. He didn't know anything about this. He didn't know about the different fuel ratings. He didn't know there's between metric and imperial. So this is why we're talking about it. Our website clearly states all of our tunes are AKI. They're all U.S. based tunes. We are a U.S. American company. I don't even know how we would get a hold of European fuel, even if we wanted it.
That'd be fun to ship.
There might be a way to buy some, but it's basically impossible for us to design or engineer a tune on the RON system because we have no access to that fuel.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe we could spend like $1 million and get a barrel, but how do we get the fuel?
Sure. No, it would have to be a collaborative.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have some engineering collaboration with Racing Line, and but it's not a big deal as long as you convert AKI to RON and you know what fuel to use, and you're fine. The problem is when people get sloppy. And this particular guy put 99 octane on 100 file, which also don't do that. If it's 100 file, you have to have 100 octane fuel
Or better.
or better. You can have better, but never go less. Right. So, cool to hear, Ryan. Thank you. If you're not happy with the purchase, you can return it. We'll take it back. Seriously doubt that's going to happen. In fact, you'll probably never let it out of your hands.
Right.
Okay. So, anyways,
Yep.
I think 99% of the people watching this right now know this.
I mean, I can't think of another time we've had this issue crop up where it's
No, not like
been either
10
a question or
years.
it's been quickly answered or
And I think while we don't recommend running 99 octane fuel in 100 file, 3.0 Ts have been blowing up. We've proven that it's not our tune. And so I think this is just the case of this customer.
Can I talk about the one that we dissected? I
Yeah,
don't think we really talked about that.
We need to do a full write up on that. But yeah, so we actually paid. I don't know if you guys remember, this was 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
There was kind of this thing that 034 tunes blow up 3.0 Ts. We knew that wasn't true. But at one point we had about 8 different customers who had blown their motors. And so we opened an internal study that involved customer service, engineering, marketing.
You likely got an email or a call from someone here.
If you let us know that you had a problem, we contacted you and we asked you. We surveyed, a standard set of questions, and so out of those 8 people, I think right off the bat, 4 we determined were melted cats, leaking intercooler.
Yeah, there's
something
a very obvious
4 or 5.
path from a hardware failure to the end result.
So over half, blatantly obvious that it was not the tune. Our tune doesn't melt cats. The cats melt even with the stock tune.
Or just crumble and fold and turn sideways.
Yeah. Once your catalyst breaks apart, if it goes sideways, it generates a tremendous amount of heat. And again, it's not the tune
Back heat.
back pressure
it's
heat.
all bad.
Friction and restriction, and so then it just melts, and now your motor's trying to breathe. Imagine people complain about wearing masks. Imagine having a non-breathable mask on.
Yeah, just thinking of another analogy. Yeah.
And the heat has nowhere to go. And then leaking intercooler, obviously, once the customer got in there, saw that their motor was filled with coolant.
Yeah, you get a coolant dump into a cylinder.
Yeah. So we essentially came down to 2 or 3 customers blew their motors for some unknown reason.
Yeah, we had 2 that ended up being unknown out of all of it, and they never responded to us about any further inquiries where we were trying to get information.
Yeah.
Every other incident, and then there was this one last motor, which was hey, I just flashed I went from stock to your 2+ E40 file, and it blew up the first time I got on. So we need to get that motor here, see what's going on.
So we contacted the customer. We paid him to ship the motor here. We paid for the freight, and I think we even gave him some store credit stuff for the hassle. And when his motor arrived, we went through a careful process to post-mortem and diagnose.
Literally just came out and got shipped here.
Yeah. So what happened is this motor was running, and then it started making noises and it seized.
Yep.
I don't think a rod came out the block, but
nope, everything was good.
Basically the bearings seized up in this motor and it ceased to turn the crank was locked. I don't know if you've ever seen spun bearings, but it's ugly. They essentially melt and fuse the crank to the block. It usually ruins the crank and can damage the block too. So we dug into it, and what we found is that this particular customer, when installing his high pressure fuel pump, nicked one of the O-rings and caused fuel to leak past the high pressure fuel pump shaft directly into the crankcase of the cylinder head where the fuel pump is. And we saw clearly once we opened it up that the entire top of the motor was filled with oil residue. It was like an amber color. And then right in the area around the fuel pump was clean, bright silver and oil free.
Yeah, it was kind of washed right down from the head down.
So we immediately knew that was a problem, and so ultimately the crankcase filled with fuel. His oil ceased to be viscous any longer, and the crankshaft contacted the bearings. Heat and friction ensued, and then calamity.
Yep. And
so it had nothing to do with the tune.
No, we went further, and we actually found several other items that were issues as well. This was a fairly high mileage motor. There was 170 something thousand on it. We sent all of the injectors out to get flow tested to ensure those were, we could write off those. We found 3 that were very poor flow rating. 2 were okay. 1 was marginal, I think was what that came back as.
Yeah, but I mean, even that wasn't.
That wasn't
not ideal.
That wasn't ideal, and that wasn't obviously the cause of this particular failure. But it's another thing to keep in mind that these are getting to be older motors, and injector cleaning service is not a bad idea, or refreshing your injectors is not a bad idea.
You would see that in logs. Right?
Yes, yeah, you'll generally see that as fuel trend going wonky, or some other misfires or something else.
Which we do for free for our customers. We'll look at your logs.
And swapping injectors or having failed injectors or marginal injectors is not new to this platform either.
Yeah. So
there's a number of things, but thus far we've got a cause and an answer
on that particular motor. Other customers, the challenge has been they rip their motor out, they throw another used one in, and they don't even want to deal with it. Right. But to date, we have not found one case that we could verify and document that our tune damaged or hurt a 3.0 T motor.
Yeah.
So we happen to probably have more 3.0 T cars on the market than anyone. Even our main competitor, and these motors are failing. They're failing stock. They certainly fail at a higher rate the higher things are pushed. But we take engine failures and tuning safety. I would say that's our top priority. As much as we want to make power and go fast, no one's paying us to blow their motor. Right? That's just that. So that's an unacceptable result of having our tune on your car. So we take it very seriously, and we have damaged and blown our own motors here during testing and R&D.
Yep.
So you're welcome. But that's our job, right? Is to have those failures on our dime, not yours. And God forbid if it did, we would pay for whatever damage that occurred. But if it's not our fault and it's not the result of the tune, like this customer who put in the wrong octane and had his motor blow up, he's asking us for compensation, and we'll help him as much as we can, but we know that's not our fault, and we've taken steps to try to educate customers like we're doing now and on our website that these are AKI octane ratings. But when it comes to blown 3.0 Ts, it sucks, it happens, but the only thing we can do is ensure that it's not our tune that's doing it. Our tunes are safe.
And another thing that kind of just came to my mind is like if you're unsure about something, like if you're looking at your flashing portal and you see 91, 93, 100, 104 octane files on there, if you just put a little logic tech around that and be like, well, my gas filler says I have to put 98 or better in it. Why would they have a 91 octane file? Maybe just step back and look for some clarification if you're not quite fully understanding what's
Yeah, always ask. We're always,
we'll get back to you as quick as we can. But something simple like that, just kind of
posting our customer group on Facebook.
Yep.
Even
if it's
we're
not
all
directly
on
to
there.
us, we're all on there. But we,
it's outside of our customer service team. But simple questions like that, we'll be happy to chime in on. All right, we're running out of time. How we doing?
Yeah, there's a full page of questions.
I know we got
a lot of questions about stuff.
Someone's saying, I contacted 034 about dynamic spring clunking. Any idea how long these tickets take to get resolved? Customer service is very backed up right now. Ticket response times, the initial ticket can take anywhere from 3 to 6 days or so. If you'd like to just buy the spring isolators off our website, I think they're $11, and then customer service will refund you later on. But we can at least get you the solution quickly if you order them, and then just simply request customer service to give you a refund on the order.
if that's what it is. But
if that's what it is.
a lot of times it comes down to upper strut mount torque, getting that cap nut torque. I'm not sure exactly
It depends on the
what car
application.
this is.
Yeah, I would say MQB for
MQB
sure.
stuff, it's really tough to get.
Make sure that
on
that gets
top.
But I think the spring sounds are more of like a clicking, not a clunking.
Yeah, and it's usually like you'll get some light oscillations in the road, and you'll hear a little.
Yeah. And it's very subtle. You can usually only hear it with the windows down and if there's like a wall or something nearby. I think a lot of customers have it and don't even know. So
This is normal though.
what? The clicking.
Yes.
The string sound? Yeah, well, I mean, the RAM stuff does it too. It's just the way they stack. It's a little different.
It's normal. H&R's, iBox, everyone's springs do it. It's because, like we've discussed in the past, the stacked springs kind of there's certain coils that collapse onto each other when you lower the car, and so those are kind of clicking on each other. It's not a clunk though. I know this is very subjective, but it's more of like a less of a so
We'll have to release a soundboard for suspension noise.
it's nothing bad. Nothing is being hurt or damaged. So if you don't mind just waiting for customer service to get back to you, they will send you a set for free, assuming that it's determined that that's what it is. So if it's more of a click and not a clunk, let them know. All right. B9 S4 Tuning ETA. Well, there's a couple factors at play. Yesterday would be nice, but I think it could be in the next month or so. Don't hold us to that. But the tune is really coming along.
It's basically.
I'd say I'd be fine having anyone buy the tune that I drove this weekend.
Yep.
We're also updating our flashing server to be able to flash this file. So there's the calibration and then there's the server, and they both have to be done.
Yep.
And so right now, the push is to get the server updated so that it has all the flashing protocols for this MG1. And so we're it's very soon. I think 6 months ago it was like someday.
Yes.
And now we're like maybe a month. So
yep, the development of it's very far along, and then it's kind of the busy work in the distribution side that we've got to fill out now.
Yeah. Someone says, I feel like my GTI with the rear sway bar had more of an impact on ride quality than the B9 S4 one. Am I imagining that, or is it due to the better multi-link on the B9? Yeah, the B9 has fully independent rear suspension, multi-link suspension.
Yeah, it's in general.
So does the GTI,
yeah.
but
so
it's a Mark 7.
Yeah, I've driven the Mark 5 or Mark 6, Mark 7 as well. GTI on track, and then gotten into like the B9 or B8. Yeah. They couldn't be more different in how they drive. The B9 and B8 will just eat up things that is tossing the GTI.
Like it's not even there, right?
Yeah, it's just a completely different chassis, different suspension. There's no comparison.
It just soaks up the bumps, where the GTI is much more, disturbed by those kind of things.
Yep.
And that's why, that's why when people say like RS3s or Volkswagens, I mean, the RS3 is a Volkswagen underneath.
It's just that chassis size. It's that the B chassis.
The wheelbase too has.
Yeah, it gets the strut front end, so that is already a compromised setup, and then
but I think
it's different geometry in the back.
Audi's trying to create a more luxurious, smoother, refined ride and driving experience. If they could have gone away with like the RS3 rear suspension and the B9, I'm sure they would have. So these cars are different for a reason.
Cheap to build the suspension they do.
No, it's much more complex. But yeah, that's why. But your GTI probably feels a lot more like a go-kart. So there you go. What is a single pulley ratio according to you or the Universal Community Guidelines?
I don't know. This is one this is the same as like what's a stage 1 or a stage 2. It's generally the given consensus was it's a 57-ish millimeter upper with your stock lower, which puts you in like a 2.7 something to 1 pulley ratio on a 3-liter. So that's I think where what would be normally considered a single pulley ratio kind of lives. Beyond that, you're getting into the stage 2 numbers again. So
Okay, let's just pound some of these out. I have a B8.5 with a rear main seal issue. Do you think the additional crank vibration from tune can cause this issue? No, absolutely not. So the the amount of movement that a rear main seal can accommodate is infinitely greater than what anything else in the crankshaft or in the engine block can withstand. You know, so your rear main seal is basically a spring-loaded seal that creates contact on the the crankshaft output flange, and your crank could be like wobbling around pretty, you know, quite a big amount, and the rear main seal would still seal. Where you would see issues with this is in the main bearings, for sure. The tolerances on the main bearing are like less than 1/1000th of an inch. The tolerance on the rear main seal is probably like, you know, 5/100ths of an inch or something, you know, much, much greater. So, you know, the rear main seals go out, they leak. It's a thing. It's not necessarily, it's just what they do. I mean, they are a replacement wear item. They don't last forever. We do a ton of them here in our service department. So, carbon lids for the B8.5 X34 as an extra add-on. No current plans. Our goal was to bring a world-class intake to the market for about $350, and that's what we've done. I don't. The problem is, I think if we offer that, and if it's $150, then all of a sudden we have a $500 intake, and that puts us in a different price class. So we wanted to kind of take the CTS crappy intake head on with ours, and that's what we're doing with that price. I don't know if a ton of people want this.
People have requested to see some flow data of ours compared to CTS and PCS.
Yeah, well, CTS we've done.
We've done the filter that they provided. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But we could, that's a never-ending queue of products we could be comparing to. We don't typically provide
our intake has zero flow restriction for over 600 horsepower. I mean, it's honestly our highest flowing intake because it's a big free flowing filter on a big 4-inch long silicone hose this big. You know, there's literally nothing between the filter and. No, I think it is. Yeah, it flows a ton.
The R3 intake is good for 850.
But with some, I mean, it depends on what you're measuring.
So is
for
ours.
Pressure drop. Yeah, I mean,
So is ours.
we could flow ours.
I mean, I said zero flow restriction. Up to 600, like 600 horsepower through our intake. Like there's no filter.
It's basically.
And then there could be some small, but our intake will easily support 800 horsepower.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You could take an RS3 intake, cut it in half, and you basically then got the B8 S4 intake.
Yeah,
because it's the
I think
diameter
it's
with a
even,
shorter run.
It's a lot less intake than you. No, so when you're talking about the flow rating at zero restriction, you're talking about the maximum power without any restriction. A motor can continue to produce a lot of power with restriction.
To be clear, there's no such thing as zero restriction because you wouldn't have flow if there was zero. Well, I guess restrictions one thing. Yeah, pressure difference was
like having nothing on it.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
A
few minutes.
Yep.
A lot of pulley questions. Weekly SuperDuper charger updates. Any day now.
Yeah.
Probably. God, I feel like I've said this too many times, but about the next month or so. I mean, we're going to probably release 10 or 15 new products in the next month.
Because there's a lot of stuff coming.
There's a lot of stuff coming. What transmission do you prefer, DL51 or ZF8? I mean, I got to go DSG if I had a choice.
If I had a choice and it was equal, yeah.
ZF8's not bad at all.
No, ZF8's not bad. I would prefer the DL501.
Yeah, but if you have to have an auto, the ZF8's one of the best I've ever driven. And then depending on how you program it, but I love the ZF8 and the B9 S4, especially in sport mode. It's really fun and snappy.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, we got a bunch of questions we can tackle for next week. If we didn't get to your question, we're sorry. Kind of blabbered on a little bit on a few topics.
Yeah, we had quite a few coming in this week.
But a lot of good stuff. You guys are asking great questions. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Here.